Okay, so hopefully my audio is clear. Okay, so welcome to Module 3, Lesson 3. We'll be talking about Chapter 3, all about services, and Chapter 4, service relationships. Okay, also, I should be receiving your team project proposal submission by today as well, right? So it could give me a general idea where the students where the team project is headed for each team. Again, the team members are the same from previous class. So our agenda for today is we'll open up the textbook, as again it's fairly short. So we'll discuss the textbook, and then we'll discuss the Modias point, and then we'll use the PowerPoint slide as a summary. Then we'll do a concept test, and then the remaining time we'll have you guys read articles to do a one-on-one video chat again. Okay, so I'll try to shorten the lecture so we can have more time for the one-on-ones. Okay, so to continue, so right now we are on chapter 3. And in chapter 3, we're going to talk about products and services, utility, warranty, output, outcome, and risk. So we're basically talking about those services, right? In any service, right? How does it affect the consumer, right? What is the value for the consumer? If we're planning to offer a new service, we definitely would want the customer to gain something from it, or else the customer wouldn't want it anyway, right? Another problem as well, if let's say you offer the service, right? Even though there's a value for the customer, but if let's say there's a competitor, another company that is basically offering the same service, but let's say that same service offers more value. What are the types of value? It could be more cost, lower cost, right? Easier to use, right? And let's say the customer service is great, right? So let's move on. So products are created from configuration of resources to which organization has access, right? And as we mentioned yesterday, these includes people, information and technology, value streams and processes, suppliers and partners. Okay. A product is a configuration of an organization's resources designed to offer value for a consumer, right? Product is designed to offer value for consumer, right? You don't just want to create a product that has no purpose, right? Service means enabling value co-creation. You would always see this co-creation, right? Facilitating outcomes that customers want to achieve. So service is helping customers, right, for their end goal, right? It could be that they could do this on their own, or maybe they cannot do this on their own efficiently, right? So they so the service aims to provide customer to manage their cost and risk, right? And generally, customer would uh, buy a service, right? So that they have maybe lower cost and also lower risk, right? Because you can pass on the risk to the service provider, right? Service provider organizations need to consider the following areas, right? To assess whether or not they are delivering value. These are cost, risk, outputs, outcomes, utility, and warranty. So, as a service provider, they do need to balance, right? And make it attractive service for them, right? For example, an online banking service might be attractive to consumers, but if it's not secure and very risky, people would stop using it. Okay? Another example is a free 1 hour delivery for items ordered in the website can also be attractive, but might be too costly for the organization to continue offering, right? Products and services need to be considered holistically, right? Look at it in a big view, right? Too much focus on one element, so that's the opposite of holistically. So too much focus on one thing of a product or a service could mean the big picture is missed and the customer doesn't get the outcome they wanted. Okay? Outputs and outcomes. A service provider organization provides outputs, right? Which helps its consumers achieve their desired outcomes. This is where co creation is important. Without input or activity from the consumer, no value is created, right? So it means that if the service provider provided, let's say, a service, and if the consumer did not use the service, which is the input or activity, then there's no value for the consumer. So think about a time where maybe you have purchased a product or a service that you end up not using. So, in essence, that did not provide any value for you. Okay? An output is a tangible or intangible. Tangible meaning something that you can touch, you can see using your five senses, or intangible, something that maybe you can only feel or have an understanding or just a perception, right? So again, an output is tangible or intangible deliverable of an activity. An outcome is the result for a stakeholder enabled by one or more outputs, right? So that is basically where if the consumer used it, they'll get the outcome. Okay, next. Value is created when service has more positive than negative effects, right? So again, so that's why most of the time you wouldn't see this in the market, right, being offered. It's because company do spend time for this value creation process in their planning stage, right, before they execute. Okay, so for example, it might cost a consumer money to pay for an externally provided email service, but it reduces the amount of money consumers spends on internal resources. What it means by that is maybe it uses a email service, let's say like QQ or Gmail, right? Instead of creating their own for their organization, right? And these basically transfer the risks associated with, let's say, hardware failure to another organization because you didn't create and maintain your own email service, right? You don't have the risk of getting that hardware failure, but you did transfer that risk to the other organization. So this figure one, you would see the balance and right. So in a balancing weighing scale, you do want something that's heavier, meaning more value, right? So you do want to have better supported outcomes, cost remove and risk remove than affected outcome, cost introduced, risk introduced. Okay. So the service provider organization needs to understand the costs of service provision to make sure they are within budgetary constraints and the organization is profitable. Because if they don't make a profit, it won't help them unless it's a non-profit organization where they don't need to profit, but they still need to earn a bit so that they can reinvest in their business and make the services better. Okay. So this is an example for nonprofit or public sector, right? Instead of making profit, they are required to meet budget targets. Okay. So now we talk about cost and risk. Cost is the amount of money spent on a specific activity or resource. That's very easy. You throw away or you use your money. Risk is a possible event, right? So it's a future event that could cause harm or loss or make it difficult to achieve objectives. Risk can also be defined as uncertainty of outcome and can be used in the context of measuring probability of positive outcomes as well as negative outcomes, right? Service provider organizations, right, may manage the detail of the risk on behalf of the consumer, right? The consumer participates in risk reduction by helping to define the service and what it needs to do. For example, an online file storage service, there is a range of security options the service provider organization can offer. Now, you can think of this as Alibaba Cloud or let's say Amazon Web Services, right? So they can offer security options, right? From minimal security to full encryption and multi factor authentication, right? More complexity will definitely add more cost for the service provider so that the consumer's attitude to risk, meaning their appetite to risk, must be understood for the service to be designed appropriately. So next is utility and warranty. Okay, the service provider organizations assess the utility and warranty of a service to check if it will create value, right? Utility is basically asking, is it fit for the purpose, right? And it describes the service. Warranty is saying that is it fit for use and describes how the service perform. Okay, so utility is the functionality offered by a product or service to meet a particular need. So this would describe whether it is fit for purpose. It was repeated, okay. A service can provide utility by removing constraints from the consumer or supporting their performance or both. When we say removing constraints, so it's removing obstacles, right? things that uh, n- uh, things that makes the consumer not be able to accomplish some of the things that the consumer needs to do. Warranty is the assurance that the product or service will meet agreed requirements, right? So, warranty would describe how a service performs, whether is it fit for use. It covers areas like availability, capacity, security, and continuity. The service must meet the levels required by the consumer. Let's consider an example. Let's say you are using a social media platform, like maybe Runrun or Weibo, right? And utility requirements could include functionality such as users can follow accounts, users can see most recent or most popular content, users can also block accounts. So you're seeing functionalities here. The warranty requirements could include making sure that the social media platform is available when users want to access it, right? It doesn't fail because of high traffic. The platform keeps users' details secure, maybe data encryption at rest and data encryption in transit. The platform could be restored if there is a major issue. Okay, so let's see, to what chapter are we? Okay, we still have chapter 4, and we do have the following: service offerings, service relationship management, service provision, and service consumption. So, a service offering is a description of one or more services designed to address the needs of the target consumer group, right? This is basically just defining the service, right? And now we're using another term to make it more clear, and we'll use the term service offering. Okay. For service offerings, you have three things. One is goods. These are an example would be a car, and you transfer the ownership, right, from the service provider to now to the consumer. You transfer the ownership. Access to resource, the ownership is not transferred. For example, renting a car, right? Next, service actions. So these are performed by the provider. So let's say a consumer needs roadside assistance if the car breaks down. So they are performed according to the agreement with the consumer, right? For example, the consumer paid extra to have guaranteed assistance within 1 hour. Okay. The consumer groups to which service is offered may be part of the same organization as the service provider, or they might be external to the service provider, right? Service providers can offer the same product in different ways to different consumer groups. An example with having the same product, which is a car rental, there's short term and long term car leases, right? Or even a right to buy at the end of the lease. Service relationship is a cooperation between the service provider and a service consumer, right? And those include service provision, service consumption, and service relationship management. So we come across this new term again, but we've been talking about this and we're just defining them clearly with specific terms, right? So as a service provider, right, they basically provide service provision, right? This is the activity performed by an organization to provide services. So this is the service provider, right? These includes management of resources, right? Configured to deliver the service. Okay, that is, let's say for goods, access to these resources for users, fulfillment of agreed service action, right? Service performance management, and continual improvement. Okay, for service consumption, so these are activities performed by an organization to consume services, meaning the consumers. Again, consumers can be individual or companies or organizations. So they also need activities on how to manage the consumer's resources to use the service, right? An example, to use a service for the storage service or the email service a while ago, they would still need to hire a person to manage that and maybe an internet connection. So those are part of service consumption. Okay. Service relationship management includes joint activities performed by the service provider and a service consumer to ensure continual value co creation based on agreed and available service offering. So if we come back to, let's say, the email service or the storage service, now there would be a relationship between the service provider and the consumer. And why do we keep saying co creation, right? So the consumer has its own behavior and activities on how to use the service. And if they have a relationship with the service provider now can know what the customer wants. Maybe improvement, maybe a different feature, maybe fixing a bug. So that also creates value for the service provider as they can improve or introduce new services. And most of the time, we hear them as partnerships, right? So in this picture, you would see the resources, products, and you have three types of products: the goods, access to resource, service action, and they are service offering. And they basically would build a service relationship. So this image would just show, I don't need to zoom in, right? So every circle is an organization, right? And every line, a curved line, the blue curved line, means that they have a relationship, right? So the organization A would provide the service and connects to organization B. And B is the consumer, but B can also use that and can provide a different type of service. An example here would be, let's say, organization A create or modify resources within organization B. Organization B can use resources to provide services to its own consumers. And now for the example, let's say organization B buys from A, and what do they buy? Chips, computer chips, right? Organization B builds laptop and it can sell laptops to organization C, which give them to its consultants. So maybe we have a company that does consultancy and they are a consumer. Okay, so that's now done with the chapter. I can quickly show you a an example of sharing a risk. So As I mentioned before, let's open this in a new tab. If the organization handles everything, they would basically have all these risks in the right column, this big column, right? But if, let's say, the organization, which is the consumer, have a relationship with a service provider, in this case, it could be Amazon Web Services or Alibaba Cloud, right? And now they would have shared responsibility, also known as shared risk. Okay. So now Amazon Web Services, or let's say Alibaba Cloud, is responsible for security of the cloud, meaning anything that it provides is services like the hardware, right? For let's say a storage service, a database service. It also provides email service, right? And the underlying software with that. So it would provide security, right? In this patch, let's say they would patch the infrastructure, maintain the data center, make sure that it's available, make sure that there is redundancy, right? As as consumer, they now have these risks to handle, right? Anything that's related to customer data, they have to choose the correct options to encrypt. Operating system and other network and firewall configuration, they do have to manage that security, and so on and so forth. If you want to see about the warranties, right? And we can, let's say, check this one. And hold on. Durability. Oh, there you go. I think I saw it. Hold on. Okay, let's look for just an image so that it's easier for everyone to see. Nope. Okay, maybe we'll just check this out. Okay, so Amazon EC2 is basically a service, an infrastructure as a service, right? Where it would let you access to virtual servers, meaning that the server is located to Amazon data centers, right? And you choose an operating system. Then you just connect. Okay. So let's see. So here's an example of a warranty, right? Service level agreement commitment of 99.99 availability, right? So it has that um, availability percentage in a way that they, if it goes below that, they basically are um, breaching their contract or warranty, right? So this is their guarantee. Okay, let's see. Let's quickly see features, right? So these are like the functions that the service can provide, right? You can pause and resume your instances, meaning the computer that you rented, right? You have flexible storage option for different types of consumers. You only pay for what you use, and so on and so forth. Okay. Okay, now let's see. We can quickly check some muddiest points before we do a summary. Let's click this out. So we'll start with Ethan again. So let's see. Service relationship model is mentioned. Okay, it uses the example of a computer chip from assembly to sale. So my question is it possible for a product to fall in value due to the service relationship? I It can fall in value, right? Let's say the provider of the chip, right, and the customer for the laptop manufacturer. Let's say they don't have a service relationship, right? And the product can fall in value. The reason why, a reason could be that maybe the chip provider didn't know that the laptop manufacturer needed a more high performance chip, right? In a sense that for the laptop manufacturer, they would think that there's no value for that computer chip because maybe there's another company that could that can provide a high performance computer chip. Okay, just an example. So interesting topic is outputs and outcomes. So service provider organizations produce output, correct, and helps its consumers achieve their desired outcomes. So must the consumer create value? Why? So this is just a refresher, right? For the service provider, they would plan so that they can market and convince the consumer, hey, if you grab this service, you will save money, you can reach a lot of customers, right? And thus it will create value. There's a will. So there's a future possibility, right? However, the customer must use the service, right? So that the value materialize, meaning the value becomes true, right? It becomes present, right? So that is for why the service also requires an input or activity from the consumer. Okay. Next is when you consider these factors, you often need to know enough about the customer, correct? So that's why you do a lot of customer research, right? Customers' lack of openness to your information may lead to risk events. Who should bear the consequence of such risk events? Huh. So I can think of a scenario. We can go back to the laptop manufacturer and the chip provider. And let's say the customer is the laptop manufacturer and found out that there's a bug or a something that a hacker or a bad hacker can attack, right? Well, if the customer didn't tell the chip provider that there's something wrong, right? Then actually both of them would suffer, right? If ever something happens, right? Because again, the laptop manufacturer would sell the laptop to, let's say, you, right? Uh, the regular people, the consumers. So the people um, would definitely demand to the laptop manufacturer to say, hey, maybe I want my money back. Maybe, hey, fix your problem with the chip, right? And then let's say the laptop manufacturer goes to the chip provider and say, hey, you also are part of this risk, or you are part of the consequence of the failure, right? So they do really need to have a relationship, right? But then again, as for the end customer, right, the regular customer, they don't know about the chip manufacturer. They just know the seller, which is the laptop manufacturer. Okay. ID outsourcing managed service is to give the enterprise information construction work to the specialized service company to do. In this way, the service efficiency is higher, the cost is lower, and it is easier to upgrade. Therefore, the enterprise can focus more on the development of the core business of the enterprise. So, this is what the IT outsourcing always would uh, say to the consumers, right? Cost is lower, right? And you can focus on your core business, right? Instead of managing stuff that doesn't really translate or doesn't really um, correlate is another big word, doesn't help with getting more profits for the business, right? So in IT services, what kind of service do we provide, right? Can you provide services from consulting to technical aspects? Is it like a company outsourcing a certain task, right? So if we go back and let's check different right now, Alibaba Cloud, right? And all products. And we can see that there's a lot of services. Maybe just click here, right? And you can see a lot of services. And we can go Amazon again, web services, and it could give you a lot of products, right? So that is one. And the other one that you were asking for consultancy, yes. Some IT consultancy services do provide those services, which helps you with maybe architecture or maybe support, right? And even AWS or Alibaba Cloud, you can basically um, purchase a plan, a support plan, so that you can access to faster responses, right? To help you guide your IT implementation as well to deploying in the cloud. So I went back here. So here, okay. So next, okay, we need to know the service provided by an organization, one or more. Products are resources that can be accessed from an organization. Service means to achieve value co-creation, promoting results customers wants to achieve. Okay, I'll just go straight to the question. If the service is not safe, what measures should we take? Right? If maybe we have a good service relationship, we can ask the provider to make sure to make it safe as it is their responsibility, right? If you have no choice and you don't have any other alternatives for that type of service, meaning there's no other service provider, you can do this on your own, right? You can make the service maybe secure, right? Maybe invest in your own organization. Okay. Okay, there's a wall of text. So let's see. I'll just focus on because I think these two parts are important factors for whether a service provider can really make money, right? Again, this is part of the um, planning where they would basically check what is their projected revenues and their projected expenses, right, for the service provider. Some companies, especially big companies, right, with a lot of funding, right, they may first think about getting a lot of consumers, right? Then after they get like a lot of consumers, and that's a time they would increase the price of their service, right? An example, the Amazon shipping for products, right? 1 day, 2 day shipping. It's super expensive to Amazon. They're losing money. But right now, they like have a big customer base in the USA, right? So if they increase the price, they'll still pay for it, right? Most likely. Okay. Question again with the positive impact and negative impact. Okay. Okay, let me just read this a bit. Okay, this is just a summary, so let's hit next. Warranty. So some phones in China can get cheaper prices by removing the warranty. Is this illegal? Hmm, never thought of that way. Hmm, actually, yes. It depends, but I think for most provider, it could be like this. Because I did purchase a phone maybe 2 years ago, and then the company said that you have this phone, right? It has no warranty. If you don't want warranty, it's cheaper. But if you want the standard warranty, you pay for more. Or if you want to have a continued warranty, right, you have to pay more. So again, it depends on the country's law, right, and the let's say the service providers warranty, basically the guidelines that they gave, right. But if they do say that if you remove the warranty, it's gone, then that is the consumer's fault. Okay. Hey, this is another summary. Don't forget that it also involves performance management and continuous improvement. And again, just a word of caution to avoid just copy pasting in the textbook. I would like to see more of your own words. You can copy paste in the textbook and then ask your question as well, right? Because I would do see people who are just copy pasting, and I can't give full credit on those. Okay, just a word of caution, right? Next, providers and consumers of technical services aware of the risk cost of providing these services. Yes, a quick answer to that. So now, yes. So what's good that when we start learning on new things, right? Now we learn about the service provider, the supply chain. Whenever we now look at the product, you would now think how many how many steps did it take? How many organizations that it passed until we got that supply? I mean that item. Okay. For a website or platform, is the public facility requirement important? What is a public facility requirement? Or the warranty requirement important? Mm, warranty, definitely if you're providing a service, right? Even just example, let's say you have a buying and selling platform, which is an e-commerce. You do want to have a warranty that all transactions are maybe secured, safe, or doesn't like just disappear, right? Okay, this is about ITIL. Okay, yes. At the end, the more important part, service must positively help the customer's expected results. Okay, okay. Yes. So if it happened that through time the service does not create value anymore, right? Give you an example. Let's say Nokia phones, right? They don't they didn't create value anymore to the consumers, and now it's a negative, and now the service doesn't exist anymore. Another service, before we do rent a lot of, let's say, DVD or CD to watch in our home, maybe VHS or Betamax, right? We go to a video rental store. Now the service is negative. It doesn't make sense. Why? Because it's just so convenient to watch everything uh, online, right? Like YouTube or Tuto, right? So people just watch online, and that happened because of the internet, right? Okay, we already gave an example, so it's the same, so we can skip this. So, given that what we learned about cost, risk, outputs, outcomes, utility, and warranty, are they enough to make sure the service is safe? We cannot have 100% guarantee. So, there's always some level of not safe, right? Service organization or service provider, they can provide 100% safe. But I do caution that if they were able to provide that 100% safe, that would cost a lot of money for them. So, as an example, right? So, let's say Alibaba Cloud and let's say Amazon Web Services says that they are 100% available, has the 100% availability for their servers. They can do that actually, but it will cost a lot of money and they won't profit at all. So it's hard to do that, right? It's like saying you want to buy a phone that doesn't break. When you put fire, it doesn't get burned, right? If you put in the water, like a very deep water, it doesn't become dead. It can be possible, but it would be super expensive that maybe no one can buy it. Okay, service quality. Okay, can skip this. Control cost through process improvement. Okay, risk categories. There's a lot, um, and we can just mention that as we go along, I guess, because there's a lot. Okay, how to customize according to the requirements of different consumers. Basically, doing a consumer research, right, or market research before consumer research, and that already answers it. If you are able to be flexible and customize one part, then it will be easy for you, right? Or maybe you just create another department to build a new product. Okay, let me just complete the modest point before we go to break. Let's say interested in cost and risk service is clearly tell consumers to manage risk. Okay, okay, we can skip this. External audits are like the white blood cells in the human body. Without them, smell of rot would be anywhere, everywhere. However, internal organization members in the position of being audited may have resistance, yeah, and are unwillingly to actively cooperate, which may also increase the difficulty of auditing. So they also call this like so good analogy. Just a quick thing. Like they do call this hygiene, uh, security, security hygiene, right? Yeah. So hygiene is like your taking a shower, brushing your teeth. So they also call that. So they even call the organization with a bad security hygiene to be smelling like a rot, right? As a term. Okay. So now we've covered the textbook and the modest point. We can take a short 15-minute break and come back again to do the summary of the lecture, do concept tests, and do a one-on-one video chat later on. Okay, I'll see you guys in 15 minutes. Okay, let's wrap up the textbook contents. So, module 3 is about key service management concepts. Okay, and we discussed the four key concept of service relationships. I mean, service management concepts, right? We have the service relationship management, which has the service provider and the consumer. service provisioning, which is from the service provider. Service consumption is for the consumer. And both these two that I mentioned are the activities, right? And then the service offering, basically what the service is being given, right? We did talk about value, cost, outcomes, outputs, risk, utility, and warranty. Goods, purchasing something physical, right? Access to resources such as the following: software as a service, platform as a service, and infrastructure as a service, right? Software as a service is basically something that an end user or any user can just readily use and do some minimal customization. Platform as a service allows deployment of applications without thinking about the operating system, right? And infrastructure as a service provides you with the hardware and virtual server with the chosen operating system. Okay. So service actions, assistance like IT support and customer support, right? So service relationships needs a cooperation between the service provider and the service consumer because they both benefit from co-creation. So what is a service relationship? This is again just a refresher, right? The provisioning and consumption for the service provider and the consumer respectively are basically activities so that the service provider can provide the services and the consumer can consume the services. And they are basically tied with service relationship management for the co creation on agreed offerings. And we have seen this diagram as well, so we can skip this. And just to add the stakeholders, examples are you have the customer, right? Defines the requirements, responsible for outcomes, and the user is the one uses the service. The sponsor is the one that authorizes budget for the service. Let's say a manager, right? The manager authorizes for that, let's say, new laptop, but the employee or another employee would be the one using it as a user. Okay, co-creation again, and there is value. I've mentioned this if both parties can improve the service provided based for from customer feedback. Okay, so service relationship are perceived valuable or have value when they have more positive effects than negative. If it becomes the other way around, then the service no longer makes sense. Cost is the money, time spent, and people allocated because those do cost money. Risk, we already know what risk is. It's a possible event that can happen, right? It could harm us, the resources. Utility is what it's just defining what the service does. And warranty is what do you guarantee for that service. Okay. And that should be a short summary. And we'll quickly transition to concept tests. Okay. So for our concept test today, I still need your responses, but I won't need to go over them because I do want to spend more time with the preparation for one on one. Let's see, is this ABC? So if you check in the chat, I've already added the concept test. So give that a quick read, do a vote, and explain your answers. After you are done, so after you are done, we'll basically have you guys read four things, right? One is to help you refresh on what we just read about value co-creation, right? So this is just a quick read, right? Or a reference, right? And then the next one that you'll have to read is another reference that we already know, but it gives us an example. Now you should would like to read this example, so I would ask you something like this, but I don't require you to answer in long sentences. As long as you um, hit the correct answer, that's fine. And as our example, so this is a real estate example, we're going to use an example for an IT infrastructure outsourcing, right? So I'll also be providing you guys two more links, right, that talked about IT infrastructure. So you would see the benefits here, and you could already understand what are the main topics. Okay. So what are my expectation? So my expectation is I don't want people reading. You can read a bit, but I want your own answers, right? So when I ask you something, it should be from what you understand, right? I'd rather you stumble or forget things or have a harder time coming up instead of just reading in the links, right? So I'll be sending this in the chat. Hold on. So I'll send it in the chat. So this is the guide. I'm sending a document. And I'm also sending the four PDFs in case you can't or not able to access the link. Okay. Okay. So use the remaining time to finish the concept test. Use the Word document as a guide, right? So I've sent you guys the M03 guide for one-on-one Q&As. Um, and that would provide you a guide on basically what I would ask, right? And I'll let you guys spend, let's do a longer time. Let's say it's 9:48. Okay, so let's do until uh 10 10:20 a.m., right? So we will start at 10:20 a.m. with the remaining students for batch number 4. We will close this group video chat, and I will call Dr. Dong 5 minutes before 10:20 a.m. Okay, so sounds good. So if finish the concept test, start reading, use this time as well if you want to take more breaks while you're reading it, go ahead. Because I want to maximize starting from 10:20 to asking hopefully everyone if that's possible. So that should be for now, and I'll leave this meeting and I'll call Dr. Dong later. So okay, looking forward to seeing you guys in the video chat again. So see you back at 10:20 a.m. Bye for now.